Hello, my name is Linley. This is my persuasive speech, Writer's Block. The struggle is real. What do Toni Morrison, Jack London, and Neil Gaiman have in common? They are all famous writers, but it's not just writing they have in common, it's writer's block. Or some may call it writer's apprehension or writer's resistance. Most of us have suffered a leveling degree of writer's block at one time or another. If you have not yet had an episode of writer's block, odds are most likely someday you will. Today I will discuss the sources of writer's block, the biological and psychological problems that cause the impedance to our creative flow when we need it the most, and the negative effect on our life as a result. Then I'd like to examine solutions that we can use to manage or even beat our creative blocks to become better, more efficient writers. To begin with, I'd like to pose a couple of questions. Why should we inform ourselves about creative blocks, especially if we have not yet experienced a block? Because most people experience a block sooner or later. In the American Journal of Neuroradiology, Dr. Costello wrote about his own writer's block experience. He mentioned that writer's block is common among college and university students. He notes procrastination and perfectionism as some of the causes. Is writer's block a real thing or just a figment of the imagination? That is the title of an article written by Oliver Burkeman. The title is an expression to demonstrate that writer's block is not real. Concerning that thought, Burkeman quoted psychologist Paul Sylvia as saying, "It is a description masquerading as an explanation. It portrays a situation." In other words, he is saying the problem is not the problem. Writer's block can be a source of great stress and have adverse consequences on one's personal and professional life if deadlines are not met. Dr. Birkenhoff said in the Psychology Review, the presence of block might serve to prolong unnecessary suffering for the client, hindering aspects of functioning life. In an article written for MA students, Dr. Adams Turkendorf spoke of stress from writing that can cause lack of motivation and time loss. Bain, a creative writing coach, stated, "Neurologists have proven that when an individual is stressed or threatened, a part of the brain will shift control from the cerebral cortex to the limbic system, and the individual is temporarily deprived of the ability to perform nuanced analysis and creative thought." Our limbic system is beneficial when we switch to survival mode or our fight or flight response, but it isn't most helpful when we need to get into a higher level of cognitive thinking. Because writer's block is prevalent, it will most likely cause adverse consequences in our lives sooner or later. Reiterating the prevalence of writer's block, I'd like to share with you a 2015 research article by Turkish Dr. Zorbaz, as he published a study involving 428 college freshmen. It found that only 6% had almost never experienced writer's block, leaving a combined 94% that either sometimes or almost always experienced a block. Now that we have established the realness of writer's block, we might ask ourselves, what solutions can we harness to combat and prevent it? For starters, we can develop a plan of action. Doing so will save time, stress, and adverse consequences from not making an assignment deadline. We have a solution to help us to individually conquer our block. Writing coach Roseanne Bain, mentioned earlier, tells us how to use her book Around Writer's Block, using brain science to solve writer's resistance to beat writer's block. Here is an overview of her method. Step 1, recognize. In this step, we learn to self-analyze and decipher the underlying causes we are challenged with. Step 2, relax. Bain teaches us how to relax into our resistance. Step 3, respect. This is the time to respect what our body is saying and understand the problem better. Do we need to do more research, change our subject, or free write about our feelings in the moment? Finally, step 4, redirect. This is the time to shift our focus off our resistance and into our writing without impedance. As mentioned earlier, writer's block is common among writers and students. And the problem is not the block, but are the underlying issues. It is a biological problem in the brain and is tremendously common. Considering these facts, I implore you to act in the present and not wait for your next assignment. I propose that in our upcoming academic break, we put into practice and action a plan to combat future blocks. Now that we have discussed the frequency of writer's block and methods to combat it, I'd like to talk further about the consequences of block and the benefits of implementing an action plan. Next, imagine yourself as having an action plan. Visualize yourself as you sit down at your computer and you start writing. You're not tense, but you are focused on the next step of your plan. Before you know it, you're writing your assignment and you're not in writer's block. You get an A on your assignment. Your GPA has improved, leading to getting into the university you choose, all of which helps you succeed in getting the career that you have planned for. Your good GPA looks ideal on your transcripts when you show your future employer your transcripts in an interview. Your prospective employer knows that you worked hard for your grades, and that translates into how hard you will work for them on the job. On the contrary, now imagine yourself. You receive your assignment, sit down at your computer, and the anxiety begins. And you start to experience the dreaded writer's block because you didn't have a plan. This could very well result in a late or poorly constructed assignment, lower grades, GPA, and not getting into the college of your choice. Success or failure is our decision. We decide to be proactive and act now, leading to success. Or we can continue to procrastinate and suffer the adverse consequences. Since we have covered the valid and urgent reasons for an action plan, let's summarize the discussion and move to action together. In summary, we examine the underlying causes for writer's block and the methods to help us manage and defeat it. Doing so will help us become better, more efficient writers. We learned that all those who write most likely will suffer from writer's block eventually. Biologically, our brains shut down when under certain stressors. If we don't act now, we could end up suffering the adverse consequences that can damage our grades, GPA, availability of college choices, and quite possibly future careers. For this reason, we will take immediate action. Now, this minute, we have a solution to put into action without delay. Please take out your devices right now and go to Kindle. If you don't have Kindle, open Amazon Prime or Google Books or another book buying choice that you feel comfortable with. Next, search for the book Around Writer's Block, Using Brain Science to Solve Writer's Resistance by Roseanne Bain. Click on it and buy it. Next, start reading it and let your creativity flow without impedance. And then you won't ever have to experience the consequences of writer's block. Thank you.